Today I'm going to show you how to do my valve clearances. It's not that hard, it's just it takes a while because there's a lot of taking apart of your bike and getting right down into the bike. Okay, so I've got down to the front valve cover. I had to drop the radiator down. It does say in the book that you should take the radiator off and all that like bother, but I just changed the radiator fluids the other month and I really couldn't be bothered to go through that again. So I just dropped the radiator down and it was perfectly fine. I was able to access everything and no problems with it. So here's the bits and pieces I had to buy before starting the job. It's got the gaskets, the washers. That prick stick is some locket stuff, just in case I had to take the back wheel off to do the rear valves. The tins are the Moly grease, which is gun grease, but that was the highest content of Moly that I could find. And the blue box is the micrometer. So the tank's up, took out the spark plugs using the tool which is in the toolbox of the SV, which everyone gets underneath the seat. Right, so now it's time to take off the crankshaft end cap and the timing inspection cap. Now this is the bit that I was unsure of because it's taking off the fuel tank. I really didn't want to mess about with a fuel tank and like taking off all the pipes and stuff like that. But it is easy enough. It's just there's one clip, the actual clip right there in the middle of the screen where you got to press it in pretty hard, but there isn't that much access to push it in. So like pushing it in and wiggling the pipe out is awkward. But before I did the job, I ran the tank down to pretty low, so the tank was really light when I got it off. There's the fuel pipe. There's a couple of like other pipes down the back of it, and there's like the electric one, and that's about it. So it's not hard to take off. It's just that one clip's annoying. Yeah, that there in the middle of the screen is the hinge for the fuel tank. There's a bolt that goes straight through the middle of that, and that's what you take off. I just wanted to give like people a good view of that because I couldn't actually figure that out where the bolt was, which was annoying. So there's my tank now, all off the SV. Yeah, my feeler gauges were rubbish, so I purchased some other ones that have got bends in them. The bends make it easier to feel out the valve clearances. Um, what I was stuck on for a little bit was what a firm slide is, because I know if the feeler gauge can't fit in the hole, and I know if the feeler gauge is in there like really loosely, but what is a firm slide? The best way I found out a description for it was set the micrometer to whatever the feeler gauge is, put it in there, and that's a firm slide, which helped out quite a bit when I was trying to get a feel for it. Right, there's my airbox off. Um, the Haynes manual tells you to like rip out the whole guts of your bike just to get to the chain tensioner. What I did is I took the airbox off and I used extensions and I put the extensions like down through the pipes, just pulling the pipes apart just enough to put the extension down. And it was I was perfectly able to take off the tensioner, put the tensioner back on when I needed to, and retorque all the bolts without any problems whatsoever. Well, there was a slight problem here and there where I kept dropping the nut or something like that. I keep dropping stuff, but I've got one of those magnetic pickup things, so I just kept having to pick the thing back up. But it does save you not having to take off anything else. Yeah, because I only had like one of the shims to change. I only had to take off one camshaft, and yeah, I could leave everything else. So it wasn't really like that big of a deal to do. Just take off the camshaft holder, being real careful when you take it up, and the camshaft comes out. It's not exactly a hard thing to do. And there's my camshaft holder, and my chain tensioner, and my airbox. Right, so after I'd ripped my bike apart, got all the way down into it, got the shim out that I needed to change, measured it, ordered the new shim, and that's the new shim. It's a lot of work just to replace this little tiny bit of metal, but that's the little tiny bit of metal. On top of that case, that black stuff is the 50/50 oil and Moly grease mix. When I was reading up on some things that I needed to read up about to do with the valves, I was reading one story about a guy who was using the very low end of his torque wrench, and he learned a lesson that you don't use the low end because it's not that accurate. So yeah, be careful when you use torque wrenches. Always get one like if you have to use the very top or the very bottom of your torque wrench, you probably need to get a different torque wrench. So here's my camshaft back in, the holder back on, all them bolts torqued up, the cam chain on, the tensioner done up. That tensioner is in a really awkward place, but it's easy enough to get done back up. So I've put both my valve covers on and the airbox. One thing I will say about the airbox, yeah, take a couple of photos when if you take it off, because of where all the pipes go. Because I couldn't figure out where two of the pipes go when I put it back on, but that's because like the pipes go to the valve covers. They were the two ones that I couldn't figure out. But yeah, if I took like a photo from either side of it at the beginning, it would have saved me a lot of head scratching. So I'll put the tank back on and do up the radiator. So there's my bike all done. Like the valves, they're not even hard to do. It was harder to do my forks than my valves, but just the main thing with the valves was the amount of stuff I had to do. So it took longer, but it was a bit easier. You see that my bike is up on the ABBA stand at the moment. That's because it doesn't really need to be. It's just if it's on the ABBA stand, it's easier just to like have it straight, so I can work on both sides of the front. So I can work on both sides at the front without stuff hitting me in the head. I would do valves again. It's not that difficult to do. Time consuming, but I prefer to do it myself than pay someone. Thanks for watching.